First of all, I'd like to thank my classmate and former veteran, Kevin Morrissey for a very kind intro, and yeah, it was very kind, and thank you. I would like to recognize the veterans that are here with us today, Father Ambrose, Dr. Zillian, Mr. Hobbins, and I'd also like to recognize the headmaster, Mr. McDonough, and thank you for having me here today and allowing me to speak to the students and speak to your school. Veterans Day can be a little heavy, but we're going to make it light. We're going to make it as light as we can, and we're not going to talk a lot about war. We're not going to talk a lot about wounded people. We're going to talk about veterans, and you've already gotten some of that. We're going to talk about volunteering, and most importantly, we're going to talk about you, and we're going to talk about your future. So with that said, I'll introduce myself. You've got my intro, Colonel Joe Capobianco. I'm from the great state of New Hampshire, Granite Stater, just up the road, and I am a veteran. I am an Army veteran. I am a war veteran. 26 years of service in your Army. So let's start off with veterans. You've heard a little bit about Veterans Day, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, Armistice Day. You know, the war to end all wars. We're not going to talk much about war, but there's just nothing positive to say about war. It came to an end, and then it eventually became Veterans Day. I understand you study Latin here? All right, so I've got, as a product of Catholic high school, 3 years of Latin under my belt. It's been a while. But the word veteran, Latin root vetus, meaning old. So it's kind of humbling being up here, being old. But I'll tell you, a veteran, Wikipedia, a person who has long service or experience in a particular occupation or field. In our case today, we're talking Veterans Day, we're talking about military veterans. We're talking about people that are served in uniform, and we're talking about people in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Veterans are subcategorized. You can break it down into just veterans, anyone that served, living or dead, and then war veterans. And war veterans specifically, they've been in an area which armed combat takes place, and they're necessarily referred to as wars. So again, I'm an Army veteran, war veteran. As Mr. Morrissey pointed out, I've served. Had an opportunity to serve, what a great honor it is. And I've served in harm's way a time or two in Central and South America. There's a lot going on in Central and South America. And you're probably not aware of it unless you live in Miami and you read the Miami Herald or the Miami Times. There's always a lot going on in Central and South America. I've been in Southwest Asia. I've been in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Afghanistan, and I've got to tell you what, unless you go to those places and actually walk those streets and look at those young people in the eye and eat that food, you just don't have an appreciation for what's going on in the rest of the world. I got back 2 weeks ago from Mozambique, former Portuguese colony. And I got to tell you what, it looks a lot like other developing parts of the world, and it's a world where there's some turmoil going on. I'll tell you a quick story. A lot of time I travel in uniform. My job, I procure, I'm part of a team that procures equipment for your special operation forces, the Green Berets, the SEALs, the Rangers, the Commandos. And this team goes out, we buy weapons and ammunition and trucks and body armor. We buy the equipment, the material that makes them the premier fighting force that they are. A lot of times I travel. I travel to meet with industry, I go to testing locations, I travel all around the country. Most of the time I travel in uniform because the leadership says, hey, want you traveling in uniform, want you to tell the story. Tell the story of the good things that are happening in the world. Tell the story, again, I'm not going to go heavy. Tell the story about the little wins. Tell the story about the schools that are getting built. Tell the stories about the med-readies that are going on where people are getting health care. Tell the stories about helping young countries and democracies have some teeth and be able to do election. Tell that story. As I walk around in uniform, normally not the shiny blue one, I just wear the earth tone one, people come up and they thank me for my service. And I tell them time and time again, it is an honor to serve. And then a lot of them tell me, hey, I used to be in the service, and had I stayed in, I could retire. And then I have to remind them, sometimes serving, sometimes being in uniform is not easy. What Mr. Morrissey didn't tell you is, in 26 years of service, I've moved 17 times. One time, as the household goods came off the truck, one of the chairs just fell apart. And they're like, hey, we didn't break it. I said, no, I've had to glue it back together before, because furniture's not built to move that many times. I've lived in 3 different countries and 8 different states. And it's just kind of hard. It can be a challenge. It can be a challenge to move that often. It can be a challenge to have a family and move that often. But again, that's part of service. Again, I'm not gonna go heavy, but we have a friend, his name's Pat, and Pat, after 22 years of service, he was ready to retire. And they took a look at his record, and because he had a couple Purple Hearts, and because he'd been in several blast excursions with improvised explosive devices, and because he had a massive hernia during an operation where he had to be medically evacuated back to Landstuhl, they say, hey Kevin, we just want to, not Kevin, Pat, we want to spend a little time, we want to look at you. And so they kept him for a week in the VA. Pat's got some issues. He's got some stuff he's working through. He's got traumatic brain incident or disorder. He's got TBI. He's got post-traumatic stress disorder. And physically, he's just got some challenges. He broke his back. Again, wounded twice. He's got some knee issues. But you look at Pat. Pat served. Pat served for 22 years. He climbs mountains. Goes to the gym every day. He's got a wife and kids. He served. He continues to be active in the community. And Pat would tell you that he's lucky. Pat's lucky because he got to serve, he got to get out in the world, and he got to do quite a bit. All right, veterans. That's the first thing we're going to talk about. I'm going to end veterans with this quote. I want you to think about this quote. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me. Here I am, send me. And that's from Isaiah 6:8. All right, volunteers. I understand in your curriculum you do some volunteer work. Is that true? Or pretty much do some volunteer work? Definition of volunteer. Not Wikipedia, it's a little weaker definition. A volunteer is a person who voluntarily offers himself or herself for a service or undertaking. Kind of a weak definition because you use the word in the definition. Yeah, you don't want to usually do that. A person who performs a service willingly and without pay. And what I would tell you is, why is being a volunteer so important? Why is it so important that you should volunteer? And again, another quote. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, even more will be asked. That's Luke 12:48. Now, as I walked around the campus yesterday and I got a chance to talk with some of you and eat in your dining facility and just see your school, across the board, you are a very fortunate lot of individuals. You have been given much. All right, now not going heavy on you. Those that have been given much, what can you give back? And I tell you, it's one of 3 things you might have heard in church. Time, talent, and treasure. Each and every one of you has some time. I know you all have talent. There's something that you're good or even excellent at. And fiscally, you all have treasure. Now, a lot of times when people ask for help or for volunteers, people will tell them, and I've even tripped on this. You have no idea how busy I am. I am a busy person. I've got a lot going on. You have finals next week. Extremely busy. I've seen you in the classrooms. Extremely busy. I would tell you that busy is an epidemic. And busy is an epidemic that you don't need to become a part of. Each and every day you've got, I'm not even going to give you the hours, you've got your time. It's up to each and every one of you to figure out how to use it, how to best use it. But you all have time. I'm not going to go into the talent because you're a pretty diverse group. We have people singing. We've got students doing student things. I know there's a great deal of sports going on here. I'm impressed with your athletic facilities. There's a lot of talent and treasure. Each and every one of you has treasure or is from a family that has treasure and fiscal resources, or you would not be here today. So again, I've talked about it. Volunteers make the world a better place. And whether it's volunteering in your church, who's going to be a greeter? Who's going to lecture? Who's going to teach faith formation to the young Catholics or Protestants or people within our churches? Who's going to do that? Who's going to be a Eucharistic minister? It ought to be some of us. It ought to be each one of us doing something. Who's going to volunteer in the community? Who's going to run for office? Man, that's a hard thing to do. Your entire life would be put in the tabloids. You know, they kind of open you up. They take a hard look at you. Who's going to govern? Who's going to volunteer to be in the government? Who's going to volunteer to do the neighborhood watch? Who's going to be the coach? Who's going to be the volunteer coach? Who's going to drive the van for the swim team to get to the pool to do practice? A volunteer is going to do that. All right, so we talked about veterans. We talked about volunteers. Last thing is the thing you most want to hear about. It's you. It's you and it's your future. I'll start with a quote. You may or may not know this. It's from a song. It's from a group called Timbuktu, and it goes like this. I study nuclear science. I love my classes. I got a crazy teacher. He wears dark glasses. Things are going great, but they're only getting better. I'm doing all right. I'm getting good grades. The future's so bright, I've got to wear shades. Your future's so bright, you have to wear sunglasses. You're at a great school. You got great opportunity. Whether you get a B next week or an A, your future's so bright, you got to wear shades. And I would tell you, your future's really tied back to what you're going to do with the God-given gifts you're given, and what you're going to do as far as spending some of your time, talent, and treasure. Last thing I would tell you is I was a student. I've been a student a lot. I've been a student in high school, college a couple times. The Army's big on education. I go to a lot of schools to learn how to write better, how to speak better, how to give public addresses. No fooling. I'm getting graded all the time. One of the things you got to be careful of when you're a student is your future's so bright. And I know you're thinking about college, National Honor Society, varsity team. Be very careful about spending so much time in the future. You got to live in the present. You got to enjoy today. You got to look at the sky, which is a blue that only happens in New England. You need to realize this is a temperate day. You can get by with a sweater. This is a beautiful day. It's Veterans Day. And as you think about your future and how bright it is, don't miss the opportunity to live in the current moment. I'll wrap it up with a quote. It's the same quote. I'm going to say it again. Then I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, here I am. Send me. Here I am. Send me. I'd like to thank you all for your attention. You're a great group. And I want to wish you a very happy Veterans Day.